Hello, welcome to this video where we'll be looking at some generative AI tools in Photoshop. So let's jump straight in, shall we? So Photoshop has been developing Gen AI tools for a fair few years now. And things like the spot healing tool, for example, is a great example of that. And Generative Fill has been creeping in there over the last few years as well. What we're going to start off with today is the Generative Expand. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the crop tool to load the Generative Expand. And we need a bit of room on the canvas to explore this. So what I've done is I've just created a larger crop area. And then we're going to click on Generative Expand. And I'm not going to put any prompts. I'm just going to click on Generate. And it's going to take a couple of moments. Not long at all, to be fair, for this one. It is going quite quick, probably only about 20-30 seconds or something. And then what it will do, it will create a lovely sky and hopefully a lovely path to expand the image, which it's done pretty quickly, hasn't it? You can't really tell kind of the difference with or without. You can click it there to kind of see. You've got a couple of variations as well, which is nice. So you can choose which one you prefer. So that is the Generative Expand. It's pretty simple. What we do now is we'll play around with the Generative Fill. Who doesn't love a bit of Generative Fill? So I'm going to create a new layer for that. And I'm going to use the lasso tool just to indicate where I want to add my object. And the object I'm going to add with this is a penguin because I quite like penguins, really. No other reason. Then I'm going to click on Generate. And again, it'll probably take about 20 or 30 seconds to work to create whatever you have asked it to generate. There's always tips which come up as well, which is also quite useful. And here we go. There's my penguin there. You'll see again, it's added another layer there. So we didn't actually need to add a new layer. So I'm just going to delete that layer so I don't have lots of layers. And if I jump back up here, there's 3 different sorts of penguin variations. I think I am going to go for that one. I think that was quite cute. So that is the Generative Fill. On this image as well, I want to play around with the sky replacement tool, which is one of my favourite tools. But for it to work effectively, it needs to work on a flattened image, really. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flatten these 3 layers down. So I'm just going to select all 3 of them and then right click and choose flatten image. So I've got a flattened image to work with. And then to find the sky replacement, you just need to go to Edit and Sky Replacement. And it will create you a different sky. And how this is quite clever because it works out what is sky and what is not sky. And then you can add, there's lots of different skies to choose from. I quite like the rainbow. There's kind of angry skies, which might work quite well because the sea is quite rough. Or something like this. There's lots to play around with. I actually quite like the rainbow one, so I'm going to go back to that, I think. If I can scroll it down like so, because I think that fits quite nicely with the colour of the scene as well. And there's lots of adjustments here. You can play around with it as well to give the desired look that you want. So yeah, that is the sky replacement as well. So those are 3 tools that are quite good fun to play with. Let's move on to the background replacement. So this is Daisy. This is one of our rabbits. And I'm just going to show you how easy it is to remove the background. So I'm just going to click on that and it will take a few moments to remove. And it does a pretty good job, to be honest. In previous incarnations of Photoshop, you would have had to spend quite a bit of time making sure that you've got a really good selection if you wanted to remove the background, and it'd be a lot more manual. However, now, with kind of, how long was that? It was probably going about 20 seconds. You've got a really nice outline to that. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So that is how you would remove background, is completely with one click. Then you can either import your own background or generate background. So let's just generate a background. I'm just going to put grass with some flowers. There we go. And then click on generate and see what it comes up with. And again, you got the tips for everything, which is quite nice. So it gives you something to read whilst you're waiting for the generation to occur. Da-da-dum-da-dum. Almost there, almost there. There we go. Oh, look at that. Daisy's got daisies. That is really quite sweet. There's a few little imperfections around here, but it's not too bad. That one's really sweet, especially how the grass has gone over there. So it does a pretty decent job. And what's this one look like? That's not bad as well. So the backgrounds that it's generated is a pretty good job. So that is playing with backgrounds. And the final thing that I want to show you is the couple of tools, the spot healing tool, which it's been actually on Photoshop for a fair few years. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so that you can see what it does. I can hide it or find it down here, spot healing brush tool. So if we click on that, basically what it does, it will work out what is by, it's generating the scene around the spot. You see up here you've got all the, if you want to change the brush size, for example, or anything like that, you've got that there. But it does a pretty decent job. So that's the spot healing tool if you want to do some fine tuning of your images. And you've got underneath there, you've got the remove tool as well, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to try and remove this building here because I don't think it looks very nice for the image when I just want the sea. So I'm just going to choose the area first of all. Sometimes this might take a little bit extra time compared to the other things that we've been doing in this video, but it shouldn't take too long. There we go, it started to work now. And the good thing about this using in Photoshop is that it doesn't use any generative credits up like you would if you were using Adobe Express, for example, or most of the generative AI tools that are out there. And there we go. That's done a pretty decent job, actually. So that is the remove tool. Again, it works out what would be behind the object that you're removing, and does a pretty good job. Obviously, depending on the image, it might do a better job or a worse job. If I was to remove this, for example, it might look a little bit odd, I'm not sure. But for a first go, it's not done a bad job at all. So there we have it. There's a few Photoshop generative AI tools that you can play around with. They really do help to speed up the process of simple tasks, like especially removing the backgrounds and stuff like that. It helps you speed up the process, and then you can be more creative with the concepts and the other ideas that you have. So there we go. There's a few Gen AI tools there in Photoshop. If you like the video, please like and share, and add a comment if there's any Gen AI tools that you would like me to explore in future videos. See you next time.